experience. I met him in one of the, I think, first time we meet of C# Dev Connect.
I think so.
Yeah. And so he has a lot of experience with databases and programming. And I was asking him last time whether he was interested in giving a talk. And then he was looking for a topic, was giving some different thoughts, and then he was saying like, I have experience with building grammars for DSPs, and therefore I was saying, okay, indeed, that's an interesting talk for him. So, and he will also showing it based on some projects that he made himself before. So, welcome all people.
Thank you. So, how many of you know and use regular expressions? Right. And how many of you like using regular expressions that are this long? I use the thumb rule. I start to get suspicious when my regular expressions are longer than my thumb. Which doesn't mean I just standard boss say I don't use them. Well,
I'm thinking too.
It's not a hard and fast rule, but it's when I start to get suspicious that maybe there's a better way. So I'm going to go through some examples of some work I did for a couple of projects at home where I use alternatives to monstrous long regular expressions that I think give code base that's easier to understand. So the first one is...
Should there be something on screen?
Well, I got a whole bunch of stuff open. So this is the a map definition file for a game. And this could probably be done with one big regular expression. You've got some header information here, version number, the dimensions, width and height of the map, and then you've got a whole bunch of different blocks. This is the terrain type, the terrain elevations, then you've got a whole bunch of text site features for roads, rivers, etc. And finally down to a list of place names. So you can write a regular expression to do that, but it would be this long. And then you still have to go through and you have to check that each piece you recognize is the right width and you've got the right number of them in each block. So why not just drive through a loop and parse it? So what I've done here, let's go, is a little project. And who's color doing? That's weird. Come on, one at a time. So, map parser here. So, this is a little structure using a little lexer here. Side. So, and this, I call it abstract parser, which isn't the best name. Really, it's the scanner, and it's reading in lines and keeping track of which line you're on for error handling if you have an error. And then I'm deriving from that this map parser. And I've got some version control here, so I can have a couple of versions because I've got two versions of the file. And then the parse function goes through and returns a map definition based on the header from the header, tracks the size, and then delegates the work of the different blocks to specific subclasses. So one that parses the terrain, the elevation, the features. So let's look at map header, which does the sizing. points there.
I agree.
So, the work here is in parse. So it's reading header line 2, and it's using some small regular expressions for doing the validation of each line, but it's calling the specific regular expression that validates each line as you encounter that line. So the real structure of the file is in this two-level recursive descent, but then the validation is done, and then as you get each line read, you just check its length as you pass through, and you're in a loop, so for each block, you know the size of the map, and you read the number of lines you need. So this is a way to step through that data file for the map definition without having to do a regular expression, but taking advantage of some small regular expressions to control that you've got only the right character types for the terrain and the elevation. And this runs quite nicely. And do a little demonstration. That's a small map, but an example of what I've done for my game here is now that's the map we just looked at, comes up in a couple of seconds. Actually, most of that delay is doing some pathfinding preparation. By 7:30. So that's a pretty good map. I'm coming up. So that's an example of something that could be done with a regular expression, but is perhaps better done without using a regular expression and give you better control over, let's minimize that, in case there's questions. So another one I did, I was, and this is my very first DB project from, where did it go here? There it is. I stole this from Microsoft's Windows 3.1. It's a little game here that two little gorillas on the skyline, except there's supposed to be sound effects. The sound effects are stored in QABC notation in the file, but when I did this in Visual Basic 6, 18 years ago, the player got lost. So I started playing around with trying to figure out how to parse the QABC notation. And I never did get the sound effects of that game, but I ended up with a nice little synthesizer here. So that's what I was playing a moment ago. So this QABC notation, I'm parsing in, and we'll look at the grammar for that, which is using a nice tool that I'll show you in a few minutes, that embeds the office and hour formulation right in C# using overloading of the operators. So, where's my grammar? So here's the grammar. Big enough?
Yep.
Someone back? Yeah, okay. So here's the rules in Bacchus and hour formulation. In standard grammar notation, my terminals are capitalized, my non-terminals are not capitalized, they're a camel case. The definition of the terminals, this is really just Lexignac adapted to 21st century. So I've got some regular expressions and some straight strings here defining my terminals in terms of the directional notations for how to play the music, and then in terms of the notes, some definition of the back code for how to handle these non-terminals as they're generated. So these are just classes. Oh, no, there it is. And so all the code is going through to create your data structures. But then here are the actual rules. And the tool comes with a nice little grammar explorer that you can use for debugging it. Here. This one's not going to go. So here I've loaded the grammar and prove that by build that, pop this up, you'll see it flash. You just reloaded the grammar from the rebuild. And we go into the test. This is taking out the ball game, and we can check the parse. Unfortunately, I can't load this up. It doesn't have a nice view. But then you choose a note here and say locate, and it'll show you exactly where this is. So it's giving you the whole ASP tree. That comes for free. And I'll give kudo here to Roman Immense Soft. That's how it's pronounced. And this is open source on CodePlex. It's not coming up with me. Anyways, it's irony.codeplex.com is this grammar tool and the library. So he's got 37,000 downloads. He gets 5,500 to 6,000 downloads a year for the past 5 or 6 years on this. It's a great tool. So this is for when you actually have a language and you can build a grammar with the full recursive capability, parenthetical expressions. Try to use parentheses in a regular expression. You can allow the open, and you can allow the close, but you can't match them up. You actually have to have a context-free grammar in order to match up the parentheses. And that then means that whatever is recalling the parenthesized term, expression, you can then put it aside and you get a recursive definition for your grammar. So, a few things here. When you do get into this, then you'll see I've got 2 ship-reduce conflicts. This particular style of building grammar is basically running on a stack, and it's seeing a token on the look-ahead, doesn't know whether it should push that token or pop the last construct. Shift means a pop, and reduce means a pop, and shift means a push. So an example of how to handle that is an example here. So you can assign priorities. So if I take and uncomment that and rebuild, and you'll see the second one disappears. And if I go through uncomment that and rebuild, it won't disappear. So I now have an unambiguous grammar, unambiguated by means of assigning associativity and a priority to the 9 tokens that were problematic and And those were identified in the little error message. Put this one back in, look at the error message in more detail. So here you're seeing length, octave, mode, tempo, octave shift, mode play, and that's this list here. Terminal symbols that were causing an issue. Control Z, rebuild, and then there's one other thing I had in here to show you. Oh, another one here is if we go and you're going to load William Tell, and when we parse this, okay, I'm not getting my error, but what I was doing here, oh, I know, no, sorry, it wasn't an error, it was, I take this off and parse, and take a look at the very end of the conclusion. You'll see, unlike, I've got these unnamed, and that's a consequence of having this unnamed construct in my rule. So if I switch that around and so change that around, and now rebuild, let's reload, and now when we parse, we'll go look at the end. We don't have that little unnamed construct. And that's because we named it. And named it as a transient, which means it's just there to help structure the grammar, but it has no code behind. So when you declare them in this fashion as a transient non-terminal, it just allows you to write a cleaner grammar, but doesn't show up in the ASD tree. Abstract syntax tree. Like that. So, and then one other one, but I didn't get the code cleaned up, so I'm not really going to show you, but I used the same structure as the map to do the order of battle. So here's the order of battle file. And very different style from the map file, but the same structure using regular expressions to validate each line and identify the groups was used. So if anybody's interested in these parsers, I put that up on GitHub for the music one. So my GitHub page here, and there's a QABC parser up there, not the whole player, that was my very first non-trivial C# project. So I'm not showing that code till I clean it up. Because it's a mess. But the parser got cleaned up over the last couple of days. So that piece of it is up there if anyone wants to take a look. Or if you just want to play around. I haven't written a README file yet because I just put this up at 5 o'clock. Before I hopped in the car and jumped over here. I'll get a README file in there and a reference to this library which you'll need in order to use it. Any questions? Anybody want to hear some music? Sure. And I have not just the MIDI, but I've got a wave player here too. So we do William Tell Overture and switch instruments. Yeah, I was playing around with this. So Sunday I messed up the redraw of the highlight. So that's just going straight to the MIDI, but I've also got a wave player here. And oops. So this is actually another little tool you can do. So this C# code is actually performing the wave generation from the note list. And if we do this with 0.025 here for the frequency decay constant, organic squawking like this. And then we'll change that and make the squawk go away. So this is running on my 8 cores. At some point in the future, I'll run it on my GPU and stream it, and it'll start playing in a second or two. So here's it, right? The notes aren't clean. Change this to 1.25. So this goes on for several minutes. So I won't do that, but it being J season.
Top right? Like it looks different.
Sorry, is it a different?
Like the last one was very kind of compressed, and this one looks like a different type of file up there.
Oh, here?
Or is that not my input file?
Oh no, that's the music. So as I change notes, right? So I unload, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these are the notes for these tunes in the QABC notation. So that's what's being parsed.
Right, okay. So the William Tell Overture one looked very different.
Oh, yeah, well, that's because I haven't gone through and stuck in the bars.
Oh, okay.
And formatted. And it's also my task that you can run everything together and it still parses.
Okay, right, okay.
So
So this is like the ugly version, but it still works.
right.
Right. Okay.
And at some point, I'll figure out how to draw the bars here with the time signature. It's work in progress. But those who like
or just the reloaded? Because it doesn't change what's produced and it doesn't change the display on the right.
Well, that's because
I mean, it could,
I have
right?
not, yeah, it could, and also I'm, white space here, and this is what, something that made the grammar a little bit tricky, is the white space indicates the beams. So, when I work on this display again, I will start doing these as beams instead of individual notes, which musicians find easier to read.
Right.
And then the QABC notation allows for the definition of multiple voices. So then you can have chords underneath as well. But being a non-musician, I'm not sure I'm that interested. All I want is sound effects from my gorillas. Anything else?
Is there any repo for these QADC's files or
Sorry,
a repo or something?
For the music
Repository.
files
yes,
themselves?
the parser is up on GitHub, but I haven't done the player yet. So this application is not up there yet because, as I said, it's my first non-trivial C# program, and it's really ugly. But the parser got cleaned up, so the parser is up there. To run it through the MIDI is pretty simple. To do the display and to do the wave player, that's a little bit more work. Well, this actually, half the work is this piece of code here. So it gives you all sorts of controls, but the only one, well, this makes a difference. You change this to false. Then, what's good I do? You can hear the difference.
What is that property that you're tweaking there? Like, what does it do to the signal generation?
Oh, well, that one right there is with or without even harmonics. So if I add the even harmonics back in, right? So this actually sounds fuller. The other one sounds a little bit hollow, and that's the even harmonics. But this one is the frequency decay constant. So I think that's how tight your notes are from the sound. I just copied this off the internet. It's not in here. Basically, yeah, wrote it, translated into C#. I just found these algorithms, translated into C#, attached the libraries, put it in here. Oh, it works, good. So which ones can I play with that I recognize? So you've got controls here, and you've got all sorts of controls, but I'm not a musician. I took 3 months of piano lessons. And then we moved out of the house with the piano. So.
What I meant is, if you want to know the song, yeah, where do you get these QADC files?
Oh, just search on the internet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got all of these off the internet.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I didn't compose them.